Now, there is a huge rift brewing in the government. Angela Rayner has been pushing the Chancellor to increase taxes on savers and high earners.
Our reporter Sophie Reeves is in Angela Rayner's constituency of Ashton-under-Lyne and joins us live. Sophie.
Well, very good morning to you both. As you rightly say, we are in Angela Rayner's constituency this morning. Now, Ashton-under-Lyne is a traditional working-class, hard-working British town. As you can see rightly behind me, they are very proud here to be British. And of course, the reason we're here this morning is because of this alleged secret memo from the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, before the spring statement to the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. Now, that memo was entitled Alternative Ways to Raise Revenue, in which she proposed, rather than making cuts to things like welfare, that instead, apologies, some distraction here, that instead of making those cuts, that we instead boost taxes from £3 billion to £4 billion each year. Now, of course, in their election manifesto, the Labour Party made certain promises around taxes, and that's something that the Chancellor says she's determined to keep, and instead making cuts. Now, we're here this morning in Angela Rayner's constituency, finding out what people feel about this secret memo in which she proposed increase to taxes. We spoke to two local residents, pensioners, Margaret and Kenneth, and they summed up their feelings about the Deputy Prime Minister and the proposed raise to taxes really rather simply.
Rubbish.
What do you make of her then as the Deputy Prime Minister? Do you trust her?
No.
Why not?
I think she's a load of rubbish. She doesn't do anything for Ashton.
Bad enough that we lost his allowance for the heating.
The fuel allowance?
The fuel allowance. Yeah. They could have halved it. If there's two people in a house, you both get it. What they could have done is only one get it. At least you're getting something.
Let me ask you then, you said you're both in your 80s. How does it make you feel that the government are essentially targeting things that you've worked for your whole life?
Terrible. It's just like a rabble. I've lost faith in all politics.
Now, we have to say, of course, Angela Rayner would dispute much of what Kenneth and Margaret had to say there. And of course, on the other side of the coin, some people, I'm not sure how many, might welcome what Angela Rayner was proposing. For example, people who might not be affected by what she suggested, the impact on stamp duty on commercial properties, for example, or bringing back in the pensioners' lifetime allowance. Those people who might not be affected by that, but would perhaps be affected by the Chancellor's proposed cuts to things like welfare. So there are some people out there who may prefer what Angela Rayner was suggesting. However, the real crux of the issue is that this secret memo was Angela Rayner perhaps reneging on promises made by the Labour Party. And I think that concern is what's really going to stick in the craw, not just here in Ashton-under-Lyne, but for people and voters all around the UK this morning.
Fascinating.
Brilliant, Sophie Reeper.
Yep.
Thank you so much. It is fascinating because traditionally you should have been able to go to somebody who might not be wealthy. I don't know about our lovely couple there. I don't know whether they're awash with cash and they go back to their Ferrari in their 6-bedroom mansion, but probably not. You should normally have been able to go to normal people like that who've put into the pot all their life and say, Angela Rayner's talking about taxing people who've got second properties, and they would have gone, yeah, I'm all right with that. They go, no, I hate everything this government are doing.
They just don't trust them.
They don't trust them at all. I love that. She's rubbish.
Yeah.
It's rubbish.
Yeah. And she does nothing for the constituency. Let's speak to the critic of the Daily Telegraph, Ben Riley-Smith, who broke the story. Ben, morning to you.
Hello.
Congratulations, very good story. You've got the memo. This goes to the heart, doesn't it, of the tension in the Labour Party. Those who think we should not, that the government should not be targeting poorer people, people on benefits, the disabled, the winter fuel allowance, which has hit millions of pensioners, and those like Angela Rayner who think actually you can make the richer people pay more through their taxes.
Absolutely. So the memo goes back to mid-March when we're in the run-up to that spring statement. I'm sure viewers will remember Rachel Reeves was determined to fill the black hole that had emerged in the public finances by spending cuts. There was that big package of welfare cuts that was due to save about $5 billion. They almost halved the foreign aid budget and got to spend a bit more on defence. And Angela Rayner, the darling of the left, challenged that strategy with this memo. She laid out 8 different options for tax rises, and they were targeted largely at the wealthy. Some of it was on big pension pots, some of it was on dividends, some of it was on the additional rate, income taxpayers and freezing the threshold there. Ultimately, we know Rachel Reeves didn't adopt any of these policies in the spring statement. She actually made a merit of the fact that she wasn't raising tax, but it reveals these tensions that are still playing out today, which is the left is increasingly concerned about the approach the Treasury has taken by focusing on spending cuts rather than tax rises.
If the Chancellor had backed these plans by Rayner, would that have been a clear manifesto breach, Ben? Because, of course, they did say there'd be no tax rises, which frankly was misleading because we've seen that with national insurance increases.
Well, the memo that we saw tried to carefully get around that point. So in the Labour manifesto, they talked about no tax rises on working people, and that was a big debate. Exactly what that means. So when Labour in the autumn unveiled their national insurance paid by employers hike, they said, that's being paid by companies, not people directly, so that's not a breach of our manifesto. These 8 points that Rayner and her team singled out were an attempt to try and not break that manifesto promise. But I think especially the one that proposed freezing the threshold on additional rate income taxpayers. That means if you're in the 45p tax band, more people are being dragged into that. I think that one in particular would be tricky to square. And I think it's worth saying some of this might still be live because we've got a long run up to a budget in the autumn. Labour, from the very top, are not ruling out more tax rises, and we now know a lot of the details of what the left has been lobbying for. So it'll be interesting today to see whether ministers promise explicitly these tax rises won't be in the autumn budget.
It very much looks like Angela Rayner's suggestions would massively hit the kind of medium-sized businesses in this country. So this is a little bit technical, but there are these AIM shares, which is the alternative investment market. It's a subsection, basically, of the London Stock Exchange. And it helps the smaller companies that are trying to grow to get hold of capital. And she's talking about taking away the tax relief, basically, from 100. It's already going from 100% to 50%, but removing that, Ben. Do you think... How will this go down with business in this country? Because this feels awful, frankly, when businesses are trying to remain solvent anyway at the moment.
Well, the big picture is the business community was already quite frustrated with the tax approach that Labour has taken, mainly because of that huge increase in national insurance that companies pay. It's equivalent to about £25 billion a year, according to the Treasury's own statistics. I mean, that whole budget last autumn was the biggest tax raising budget for at least 3 decades. So companies are feeling sensitive on the issue of tax. It's worth pointing out that they're only actually kicked in April last month, and that's possibly the explanation for this high inflation figure that you guys are leading on the bulletins. But you can see what Rayner is trying to do with their proposals. In the run-up to the election, Labour was quite targeted, trying to draw a line about who they were going to tax and hoping that it would be popular. So we saw private school fees taxed. We saw foreigners who are buying houses in the UK taxed. So they were trying to draw these particular lines on various of the elements in the memo. You can see them trying to do the same thing. Basically, if they are going to raise tax, the proposal from the left is do it on the rich, do it on the wealthy, do it on certain parts of the business community, because that might be more popular than doing it on millions and millions of lower income earners.
I'd never press a journalist on his sources, Ben, but can we read into anything about who might have leaked this memo, what they might be wanting to achieve?
It's a good try. I am going to remain absolutely stum on anything to do with our sources. I think it's worth saying generally, having been on the outside looking at other leaks, trying to work out where they come from, almost always when you join the dots and think, it must be that person or this person, it's proved wrong. Certainly that's been my experience in a decade of journalism. So I'd caution people against drawing a straight line to where they think it's come from and doing that with absolute confidence. But I think I'll keep quiet on that. That's right.
I think one thing we can conclude, Ben, is the Chancellor of the Exchequer certainly didn't leak it, because this is hugely embarrassing for her.
Well, what I find fascinating about the story is we know some people on the left are frustrated with the spending cuts. We're seeing Labour MPs going public. What we didn't know was quite the extent to which there was this disunity at the very top of government. Angela Rayner and Rachel Reeves are 2 of the 4 people in the so-called Quad, which is the 4 members of the cabinet, a kind of inner circle, if you like, that includes Keir Starmer and Pat McFadden, who are meant to meet most weeks to discuss the most contentious policy decisions. So this does show there's concerns about economic policy at the very top of the Labour government.
OK, brilliant. Thank you so much. The fantastic Ben Riley-Smith there, the political editor of the Daily Telegraph.